Now, more stories, insights, and analysis of Illinois policy and politics. This is Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute. Once again, your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Welcome back to Illinois Rising. John Tillman here with Kristen McQueary from the Chicago Tribune editorial board. Kristen, we're having a good time today, and this is really going to be fun. Twitter is just an ongoing treasure trove of delightful things that happen in the world. And out in Peoria, the mayor took issue with somebody who had a fake Twitter account about him. And to talk to us about that from the American Civil Liberties Union is Ed Yanka. He's the Director of Communications and Public Affairs at the ACLU of Illinois. Ed, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Good to be with you this morning.
Tell the listeners what kind of shenanigans are going on out in Peoria with the mayor and this fake Twitter account.
Well, this is a story that's coming to a resolution after more than a year of sort of roiling in Peoria, and essentially the background is that in March of 2014, a young man in Peoria noticed that there was no official Peoria mayor Twitter account. And he was sort of interested in the use of Twitter, for satire. The Drunk Cutler account was one that he followed quite regularly. And so he made an account that was called @PeoriaMayor, and he really did it as a joke. He thought it would be fun to tweet at his friends or to retweet their tweets, from the mayor of Peoria, and thought that would get their attention. He didn't tell anybody he was doing it, but he was, really doing it for sort of a playful kind of inside joke. And over the series of a few days and a few weeks, he did a number of tweets that were, I would say, that they were satire, that they were parody, that no one who was, no reasonable person could, look at that and think that it was the mayor of Peoria. Rather than respond to that in, say, the fashion that we saw Rahm Emanuel respond when there was the Twitter account for his first campaign, the mayor of Peoria launched a criminal investigation to hunt down John Daniel, who was the young man's name. I mean, not that he didn't look at it as a joke. He didn't look at it as a lark. He literally started a manhunt.
And this is where it goes from funny to not so funny. So,
correct.
Kristen, what do you think of this? The police show up. They confiscate his computers.
They raid his home.
Let's talk about that.
They raided his home. I mean, I just think this is so outrageous. People don't think this sort of thing happens in modern day America. But in fact, I think the mayor and the police department should be criminally charged for somehow trumping up a case against someone and raiding his home. They took his computers. They eventually had to settle, right? Recently, maybe they'd settled for $125,000 with this young man. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. In the end, I think that everybody was interested in settling and resolving this case as opposed to spending a lot of additional resources moving forward. We were interested, obviously, in vindicating his rights and making clear that this was an inappropriate activity. And also, I think this way because of the financial settlement, we've also sent a signal to people both, I hope, across the country as well as across the state, that this just isn't the way for government to be acting.
No.
It's more than that, though. I mean, they raided his home over a fake Twitter account. I just can't get my mind around why there isn't more outrage at law enforcement, clearly using their leverage for political retribution. I can't understand why there isn't more scrutiny of those individuals.
Well, Kristen, they were part of this. They were part of this lawsuit, and so they are clearly part of the settlement. But I think that one of the things about this story that is important, in addition to, I think, that outrage, was the fact that in this community, from what was revealed in terms of emails and other sort of coverage of this, was that, the police were initially resistant to doing anything, and the mayor kept pushing. And they allowed themselves to be brought up, to be caught up into this activity, which, as you say, resulted in, our client's home being raided. His computers and cell phone were taken for several days. I mean, we ultimately, like a week later, had to write a demand letter to have them returned, even though he was never charged with anything. There was the fact that he was taken into custody over this. I mean, the police came to his place of business and put him in a squad car and took him to a police station because he had a fake Twitter account about the mayor. And I do think it is a lesson that, in any community, that you should never, ever let government's power be used in this way in order to punish someone for their political speech.
Well, especially when it was so ridiculous. I mean, this is an unbelievably ridiculous story. Here's one of the fake tweets that supposedly was in the mayor's name. I'm about to climb the Civic Center and do some lines on the roof. Who's in? And then, of course, the mayor then says that users would not have been able to tell that account was a joke. Well, if his reputation is so bad in the town of Peoria that they can't tell he's not the kind of guy that would do lines, maybe he should resign right now, plus his judgment in this whole thing. Certainly I hope there's some political accountability for this guy.
Yeah, and look, there was nobody who thought that was the mayor based on his reputation and his past behavior and et cetera, and no reasonable person would ever have done that. But here's what's amazing to me, and I just say this, if in fact that was so offensive to the mayor, and he feared that someone might have thought it was him. Here's the person in a community like Peoria who has the largest megaphone of anybody. A simple press conference, an editorial in the local newspaper, a press release saying, this isn't me, I'm really disturbed by this, I just want everybody to know this is not me, would have sufficed, as opposed to, literally unleashing, the power of the Peoria Police Department, as one of my colleagues once said, not to look with for someone with a weapon, but for a guy with a smartphone.
Right, and that is just well put to end on that note. Ed Yonka, he is with the American Civil Liberties Union, and he is the Director of Communications and Public Affairs, telling us about this terrible story in Peoria, but I'm glad it's finally settled. Ed, thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much, guys.